Marcus pulls in $71,000 annually working as an operations manager. Jen earns $52,000 teaching elementary school. Together, they bring home $123,000 a year. They own a modest home in a neighborhood with solid schools, drive 2 older vehicles they've already paid off, and get health coverage through Marcus's job. By every traditional measure, this family sits comfortably in the middle class. But here is what the numbers do not show you. Marcus and Jen have not been on a proper vacation since before their youngest was born. Their emergency fund sits at $3,800, barely enough to cover an unexpected car repair. When their refrigerator gave out 2 months ago, they had to put the $900 replacement on a credit card and stretch payments over a year. A family earning 6 figures together could not write a check for a refrigerator. This is not a story about poor spending habits. This is a story about mathematics and how the numbers stopped working for an entire generation. I have spent months digging into household budgets, wage data, and cost trends going back decades. What I found explains why so many families earning what should be comfortable incomes feel like they are constantly drowning. If you earn decent money but never seem to get ahead, if your parents seemed more financially secure on smaller paychecks, this video will show you exactly why. Subscribe and hit the notification bell because this information could change how you think about your entire financial life. Here is what we were all taught to believe. Work hard, earn a reasonable salary, and you can build a stable, comfortable life. A household bringing in $123,000 should mean security. It should mean growing savings and options for the future. Making more than your parents made should translate to having more than they had. That was the deal. That was the promise embedded in everything we were told about how life works. And I'm here to tell you that promise has been mathematically broken. Marcus and Jen gross $123,000, but after federal withholding, state taxes, Social Security contributions, and their share of health insurance premiums, they actually deposit about $80,000 into their bank account each year. That works out to roughly $6,650 per month. Now let me walk you through where every dollar goes. Their monthly mortgage payment runs $2,200. Homeowners insurance adds $190. Property taxes tack on another $420. Before they buy a single grocery item or fill up a gas tank, $2,810 disappears into housing costs alone. That represents 42% of their take-home pay dedicated entirely to keeping a roof overhead. Think about that for a moment. In 1985, the typical American house sold for around $75,000 when the median family earned about $24,000. A home cost roughly 3 years of household income. Fast forward to today, and the median home price has climbed past $400,000, while the median household income sits around $75,000. Now a home costs nearly 5.5 years of income. Housing did not just get more expensive, it became 80% more expensive relative to what people actually earn. Marcus spends 42% of his income on housing. His father spent 26% on his mortgage back in the day. That 16-point difference might sound small, but over a 30-year career, it translates to roughly $380,000 that Marcus will never have available for building wealth, funding retirement, or handling emergencies. That money gets absorbed entirely by inflated housing costs. But housing is only the first blow. Healthcare delivers the second. Marcus pays $680 monthly for family health coverage through his employer. That's just his portion. His company kicks in another $850. The total cost to insure his family runs $1,530 every single month. On top of that, their plan carries a $5,500 deductible, meaning they pay the first $5,500 of medical bills out of pocket before insurance contributes anything. Last winter, Jen developed persistent back problems. The specialist visits, imaging, and physical therapy ran just under $3,000. Insurance covered nothing because they hadn't reached their deductible. They are still making payments on that medical debt. Marcus's father had factory insurance back in the 1980s. His monthly premium was $45. There was no deductible. After a simple $15 copay, insurance handled everything. Healthcare cost his father maybe $600 in a typical year. Healthcare costs Marcus over $13,600 annually in premiums alone, before any actual medical expenses. Back in 1985, healthcare consumed roughly 4% of the average family's income. Today, it devours 19%. That 15-point increase represents another $400,000 or more over a career that vanishes into medical cost inflation, money that previous generations kept in their pockets. The third expense crushing families like Marcus and Jen is childcare. They have 2 children, ages 4 and 8. The 8-year-old attends public school, but the 4-year-old needs full-day preschool at $950 monthly. Both kids require after-school supervision, which costs another $550 per month. Total childcare expenses hit $1,800 per month, or $18,000 per year. That alone consumes 22% of their take-home income. Here's what makes this particularly painful. Marcus's mother didn't work outside the home during his early childhood. There was no childcare because his father's single paycheck covered everything the family needed. When his mother eventually took a part-time job once the kids were older, she didn't need to pay for supervision because they could stay home alone after school. Marcus and Jen cannot survive on one income. They need both paychecks just to cover inflated housing and healthcare costs. But the price of childcare eats most of what Jen contributes. Consider this math. Jen earns $52,000 before taxes. After withholding, she takes home approximately $38,000. Childcare costs $18,000 annually. Her actual contribution to household finances after childcare is $20,000 per year. She works full-time, manages a classroom of children, grades papers at night, and her net financial contribution equals roughly minimum wage when you factor in childcare costs. If she quit, they would lose her $52,000 salary, but eliminate $18,000 in childcare, plus probably $5,000 in commuting expenses and work-related costs. Her job adds maybe $15,000 to household finances. But they cannot afford for her to quit because housing and healthcare are so inflated they need every dollar, even her reduced contribution. College looms as the fourth financial threat, though it has not hit yet. Marcus's parents covered his university costs, not because they were wealthy, but because college was genuinely affordable. In 1985, a year at a state university, including tuition, housing, and meals, cost around $3,500. His father earned $45,000. College represented 8% of annual income. Today, that same state university costs $29,000 per year. Marcus earns $71,000. College now represents 41% of his annual income, a 7-fold increase relative to earnings. Marcus has 2 kids. Sending both through state universities will cost approximately $230,000 if prices hold steady, which they will not. He has saved nothing toward this goal. He cannot save for college because housing, healthcare, and childcare consume every available dollar. His children face 3 options: take on crushing student debt, skip college entirely, or watch their parents sacrifice retirement savings to fund education. Every option creates lasting financial damage. Marcus's father funded college from regular earnings while simultaneously building retirement savings. Marcus cannot accomplish either. The arithmetic simply does not permit it. Transportation compounds everything further. Marcus and Jen own a 2013 Honda and a 2015 Toyota. Both vehicles are paid off, but maintaining older cars is not free. Insurance runs $450 monthly for both vehicles. Gas costs $280 per month. Routine maintenance and repairs average another $150 monthly. Total transportation expense, $880 per month, consuming 13% of their income. Marcus's father owned 1 car. In 1985, his monthly insurance was $55. Gas ran about $35. Total transportation cost him $90 monthly, representing just 2.5% of his income. Why does Marcus need 2 cars when his father needed 1? Because Marcus and Jen both work. Their jobs lie in opposite directions from their home. Single-income families of the past needed 1 vehicle because one parent remained home. Dual-income families today require 2 cars, 2 insurance policies, 2 registration fees, double the fuel costs. The economic shift that forced both parents into the workforce also doubled transportation expenses. Meanwhile, cars themselves cost dramatically more. In 1985, a new car averaged $9,000, roughly 20% of median household income. Today's average new car costs $48,000, representing 64% of median household income. Marcus and Jen drive decade-old vehicles because they cannot afford newer ones. But aging cars break down. Each repair forces a difficult choice: spend money they do not have or finance a replacement they cannot afford. When you total these major expenses, the picture turns grim. Housing consumes 42% of income, healthcare takes 19%, childcare absorbs 22%, transportation claims 13%. Those four categories alone devour 96% of Marcus and Jen's take-home pay before they purchase groceries, pay utilities, buy clothing, and handle any other expense. They have 4% of their income remaining, roughly $270 monthly, to cover food, electricity, gas, water, internet, phones, clothing, school supplies, haircuts, and everything else life requires. It does not work. They exceed their budget every single month. They have accumulated credit card balances slowly over the past 4 years, not from reckless spending, but from the impossibility of covering basic expenses on their income. They are not financially irresponsible. They're not indulging in luxuries. They're paying for shelter, medical coverage, childcare, and transportation, the fundamental requirements of middle-class existence. Those requirements now cost more than middle-class families earn. Marcus's father retired at 61 with a company pension paying 55% of his final salary until death. The factory funded that pension entirely. Beyond Social Security, his father never needed to save for retirement. Marcus has no pension. His employer offers a 401k with a 3% match. He contributes 3% because that's the maximum he can spare. He saves 6% total toward retirement when financial experts recommend 15%. He cannot increase his contributions because every other expense has already claimed his paycheck. At his current pace, Marcus will accumulate roughly $300,000 by age 65, assuming average market returns. That sum cannot sustain a retirement. He will work until his mid-70s and still depend heavily on Social Security to survive. His father retired at 61 and lived well. Marcus will work 15 years longer and still struggle. Same relative income level, completely different outcome. What makes the situation almost unbearable is that Marcus followed every piece of advice he received. He graduated college, he built a career, he married someone with a career, he purchased a home in a quality school district, he maintains health coverage, he drives practical, reliable vehicles, he lives in a 3-bedroom house, not some sprawling mansion. He skips expensive vacations. He does not accumulate designer possessions. He rarely eats at restaurants. He lives a basic, no-frills, middle-class existence, and he is still broke. There is nothing left to trim, no wasteful spending to eliminate. He already lives lean. The problem is not his decisions. The problem is that the price of middle-class life increased at triple the rate of middle-class wages, making basic stability impossible for families earning median incomes. The emotional toll cuts deep because society continues selling a dream the economy no longer supports. Every personal finance article instructs Marcus to save 15% for retirement, maintain 6 months of expenses in emergency savings, fund his children's education, and properly maintain his home. He cannot accomplish any of these goals. He fails every standard measure of financial wellness, not from incompetence, but because those standards were established when housing cost 3 times income instead of 6 times, when healthcare cost 4% of income instead of 19%, when college cost 8% of income instead of 41%, and when childcare barely existed as an expense because single incomes sufficed. The guidance never updated to reflect economic reality. So Marcus experiences shame for failing to save when saving has become mathematically impossible under current cost structures. If you find yourself in Marcus's position or recognize that you earn what should be comfortable money but still live paycheck to paycheck, here's what actually helps. First, release the self-blame. You are not failing. the system transformed in ways that rendered middle-class stability nearly unattainable on median incomes. Recognize this truth so you stop carrying shame that doesn't belong to you. Second, confront the three dominant expenses directly: housing, healthcare, and childcare. If housing exceeds 30% of your income, you probably cannot sustain that home. Selling and relocating to a more affordable area, even if it means longer commutes or different schools, often makes more financial sense than slowly drowning in an unaffordable mortgage. If childcare devours most of one spouse's income, genuinely calculate whether single-income life might work. Cultural expectations push families toward dual incomes, but the math frequently does not support that choice. If your health coverage features enormous deductibles and steep premiums, explore high-deductible plans with health savings accounts, or investigate whether job changes might yield better benefits. You cannot budget your way out of structural cost explosions in housing, healthcare, and childcare. Only dramatic changes to those categories create real breathing room. Third, accept that replicating your parents' financial trajectory may not be possible. You cannot simultaneously save 15% for retirement, fully fund college educations, maintain robust emergency reserves, and live in an excellent school district. The math prohibits it. Choose which objectives matter most and release the others without guilt.
If your children carry some educational debt, that reflects reality, not failure. If you retire later than your parents did, that reflects economic shifts, not personal shortcomings. The middle-class life your parents enjoyed is not available at current median wages. Process that loss and move forward. Fourth, prioritize time and flexibility once income reaches a reasonable threshold. If Marcus could earn $62,000 at a job with a 10-minute commute instead of his current $71,000 with a 50-minute commute, he should probably take it. That apparent $9,000 pay cut buys back 90 minutes daily, time that has value beyond dollars. Middle-class families are simultaneously time-starved and money-starved. Sometimes trading slightly more financial pressure for significantly less time pressure improves overall quality of life, even when the numbers suggest otherwise. Here is the core truth nobody wants to acknowledge. Marcus and Jen followed every rule. They earned degrees, built careers, bought modestly, avoided luxuries. They are still broke because housing costs 80% more relative to income than it did in 1985. Healthcare costs 5 times more relative to income, childcare exists as a massive expense that single-income families never faced, and education costs 7 times more relative to income. Those 4 cost increases alone exceed what median households earn. The middle class did not fail through laziness or poor choices. The middle class was systematically dismantled by cost inflation concentrated in exactly the categories required for middle-class existence. Marcus earns more absolute dollars than his father ever did. He possesses less than his father possessed. He works harder for diminished results. His children will have less than he had. That is not moral failure. That is arithmetic. Families appearing middle class today, decent homes, 2 vehicles, professional jobs, often teeter one emergency away from collapse because middle class life now requires upper middle class income to sustain. Marcus and Jen earn $123,000 and had to finance a refrigerator. That is not financial incompetence. That is what occurs when essential costs rise 3 times faster than wages, and an entire generation discovers that the stability their parents achieved no longer exists at equivalent income levels. You can maintain faith that effort and wise choices automatically produce security and comfort, or you can recognize that economic structures transformed, the mathematics changed, and the middle class became a performance that families are bankrupting themselves to maintain, while housing, healthcare, and education extract every dollar they earn. If this finally explains why you feel broke despite earning good money, hit that like button and subscribe. I will see you in the next one.